Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Necronomicon, the gateway to beyond for the PC, originally for the Windows operating systems around the turn of the century. Back then, they'd make games that were usable in like Windows 95, 98, or Millennium Edition. Here, I'm playing this one on a Windows 10 PC. You should be able to buy this game on Steam if you're interested. It's probably a little more compatible than the CDs that I'm using. Necronomicon was developed by Cryo Interactive in 2000 for Windows, and the Sony PlayStation as well, but that was only released in Europe in the PAL format. This is a point-and-click adventure, and there are 2 CDs, and I scored this particular game at a flea market a few weeks back for 50 cents. I consider any working game for 50 cents hard to pass up, especially when it's a horror game. This one is set in the HP Lovecraft sort of universe. If you're not familiar with HP Lovecraft or his style of horror, it's sometimes referred to as cosmic horror. He tends to have stories that are set in early American towns, and they often contain the occult, sometimes monsters or evil gods, really. Also, usually a character's sanity comes into question somewhere. Sometimes characters see weird things that just shouldn't exist, and it sort of messes with your mind. Now, this game has old-school, era 2000 PC rendered graphics. Settings are going to look okay, and the overall detail, though, usually kind of feels a little empty compared to the more modern games we have. The level of details is sort of what you'd expect for the time, but it just doesn't have, it doesn't have that dirty feel to it. It's just, things seem a little too clean to me. In this one, you start the game wandering around this New England town in the 1920s. I can't say I've ever done any research on the 20s, but this one kind of looked more like the 1800s to me, as opposed to the 1900s. For me, it felt like colonial times almost, although there are telephones, so I don't know. I'm just going to assume that this is historically accurate in that regard. The game opens up with you at home, and there's a knock at the door. One of your childhood friends shows up. His name's Edgar. He gives you some object, and he's all nervous. It's some black-looking object symbol thing. He tells you it's important, you have to keep it safe, and don't give this to anybody, even him, if he asks. Then he just leaves. And you let him. I'm left wondering, why didn't you ask him any sort of question? One of your friends shows up at the door, you're going to ask something, right? What the hell is this guy talking about? You just let him leave. Is the object valuable? Is it explosive? Is someone going to come looking for it? Am I in danger? You didn't ask one question. Nothing. And then, of course, something else weird happens. 10 seconds after he leaves, there's another knock at the door. You open it, and there's some weird doctor asking if you've seen your friend and if you know where he is. Buddy, he was here like 10 seconds ago. I barely had time to close and open the door again. He was probably that guy you just passed on the walkway out front, or maybe he's hiding in the bushes. Well, now you start adventuring. You get the keys from your desk so you can drive your motorcycle into town, and there's this neat little drive animation here. It's different. Basically, you go into town looking for your friend. You're asking people on the street, and generally they treat you like crap, and they want nothing to do with you, so not a lot of hospitality in town. You can go to the country store. It's going to sell you a few things you're going to need later, including a map, which is great. When you use the map, you can actually fast travel to any places that you have available. It's useful. As you start talking to different people in town, you start to open up new areas. They're going to appear on the map. The goal of this game is to figure out what's going on with your friend. You're going to talk to people, you're going to find new destinations, and when you get to those new destinations, you're going to try to search and gather information. It's this sort of ever-growing rabbit hole that you're sort of traveling down. It's not really that frightening of a game. It's strange. It's more on the research side of things. You're going to be reading articles about people, and they're not even going to be that detailed or clear. And you're going to read about things happening in the town. I guess that's going to set up some of the backstory. You're going to learn a little local history and meet some people along the way. Kind of. There's not a lot of depth to things in this one. You're going to go back and forth in this one, trying to further your research or what's going on or what the next sort of gate is to get through. Your friend Edgar is sort of slipping. He's apparently been researching some sort of a book, and it's been affecting his health and mental state. You're there to try to unravel what's happening with him. Basically, your pal's been drifting into the occult, and it's just not turning out well for him. There's also some other doctor involved, and it's assumed that he's sort of messing with Edgar. So as you're looking into what happened here, you start to find weird things that he's been doing. The puzzle part of the game starts when you get about an hour or so into it. Before this, it's really just you talking to people in a particular order. Nothing too tough. But when you hit this first real puzzle, it's a trapdoor with some crazy runes and inscriptions on it. This is one of those puzzles that when you get to it, this is probably where you're going to stop playing. It's just too out there as a puzzle. I found the code online, I found a description as to what was happening, and reading the description, it still doesn't make sense. Sure, I know the solution, but backtracking to try to figure out what it is, no idea. It's just not intuitive at all. After this puzzle, you're now entering this sort of a more gothic horror part of the game. Not crazy scary, but after that foolish puzzle, I want to see something good. I'll see anything. This is the part where it starts to get a little weird. You're under this small, dilapidated house, and it turns out there is this gigantic underground structure beneath it. It's this large temple of some sort, and you have to navigate it. And it's super dark. You have some matches that you've been saving, and you can light torches on the wall, but they run out. It seems you have just enough to get by, and you're still going to spend a lot of time poking around in the dark, or almost dark. You do get a lantern, but then when you get to the first jump scare of the game, finally, it causes you to lose it. It took a real long time to get to this jump scare. Truthfully, I don't know if it was worth it. So it's a slow build. This game is a very slow build. There is a ton of darkness in this game, and some really obscure puzzles that I don't know if they're worth going through. You just don't read something and learn and say, oh, I need to extrapolate this information and plug it into this puzzle and we're good. No, you have to find like a symbol on a page and somehow match the drawing and the symbol with the puzzle you're trying to solve. It's really weird to match these things up. They don't seem to match up very well at all. At one point you find a brain in a jar, and you can get it to talk to you. But wow, there is a lot of trial and error to get to this point. You have to figure out these chemistry puzzles and use the right chemicals and mix things. And they give you multiple types of herbs that you can accidentally choose if you're not paying attention, and waste all your time. You go through these chemistry puzzles, and eventually you can get that brain to talk to you, which is neat enough. And then, a little further on, you can summon a corpse from beyond. This corpse talking to you, it's interesting. It does unwind some of the story a little bit, but I just don't know if it's worth it. This is over halfway through the game. There's been one jump scare, and finally there's the mention of the Necronomicon. That's in the title of the game. It's about time we heard about it. It's just a confusing story, and it seems to me there are some jumps in the narrative. After this spot with this corpse you've reanimated, temporarily at least, it just jumps and it's a different part of the story. Like, you don't know how that corpse disappeared. You didn't have to escape the caverns underneath or nothing. It's weird. It just, the way the story's balanced, it doesn't make it feel like it was plotted out to be balanced. Or at least not by today's standards. You're just strung along for a really long time before things seem like they're going to fall into place, before things start to get scary. I couldn't get this far without cheats. I think it might just be better to finish by watching someone's long play online. I had a lot of hopes for this one. It seemed pretty interesting. It just, I don't know. I think it's probably a better view than a play. Well, that's all I have today for the Necronomicon for Windows. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and I'll catch you on another video.